black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know.
I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain, turned and stared at me. And this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun, grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you this evening. Going to be speaking to Mike, who is an experienced tracker and guide up there in Canada. And he's going to be sharing a very interesting encounter with us tonight. Very fascinating encounter, actually. A lot of different aspects to the encounter. And I'll also be welcoming JW to the show, who comes to us from Florida. And JW will be sharing some of the different things that have happened to him during his encounter. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Mike to the show. Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And if you would, just kind of start from the beginning. I know you're out there in Canada, or up there in Canada. And I'd read through your email. You had talked about experiencing rock throwing and the smell and everything else. If you would, maybe for the audience, just kind of start from the very beginning, Mike. Tell us what you're out doing, and then just kind of walk us into what happened.
Well, it started out with me and a close friend of mine going fly fishing for a day, and we were fishing in a fairly quiet spot, not far away from more high traffic, more heavily pressured fisheries, but a little bit off the beaten track. And yeah, I mean, it's a tough go to get in there. It's probably 3 or 4 miles, and most of which is hiking right through the middle of an ice cold creek, which kind of keeps the majority of people out of there. It's tough. You have to have a little dedication to get in there. Anyway, once you get, probably 2 to 3-ish miles in, you're entering a very tight slot canyon. As you're looking up, the canyon ends at a waterfall, probably a 10-foot waterfall, and the canyon, I would have to estimate it to be about 150 feet on one side and about 60 feet on the other side. So you're in a pretty tight corridor with nowhere to go once you're in there. Being that it's restricted space, you're not going to have multiple people fishing at the same time. So I was actually sitting on a little rock outcropping about 6 feet above the water's level, just relaxing and hanging out, enjoying the day. Up until this point, it was a beautiful sunny day, and this was also in the fall. I should have probably thrown that in. Anyway, my friend who was fishing, I was watching him, and he stopped instantly and just sort of paused for a minute and didn't really say anything. He just looked back at me, and probably a full second or so later said, "Did you hear that?" And I legitimately didn't hear anything. I was You know, I was totally oblivious, and at this point I was kind of playing back and forth in my mind. Maybe he's just, you know, playing with me. The other part I should have probably thrown in just a little bit earlier, which I believe plays a significance, is that, you know, there was two of us men, and we both had our dogs with us. So it was kind of two people, two dogs, total of 4 bodies. Anyway, as soon as we basically let go and disregard his claim that he heard a scream that I didn't hear, immediately behind my back, it was just a boom, boom. And there were 2 very large rocks that came into the water. And then, I mean, the water was pretty shallow. So when they hit the bottom, we had, you know, the ability to look back really quickly. And I mean, these rocks were big enough that they moved so much water that we still had the time to watch the water sprouting back out of the river and shooting up into a line up the cliff walls. And I would estimate both of these rocks, because I could point them out today, the 2 that came down that day, I would estimate them to be 2 to 3 basketballs would be roughly where I'm at. Anyway, at that point, that was enough for me to be a little bit more intrigued, I guess, and sort of interested in the situation and thinking, well, when my friend stopped fishing, he asked, you know, did you hear that? And that was when I was like, no, I didn't. And he claimed it was a scream coming from the top of the waterfall somewhere ahead of him. We couldn't see that. It was over our heads. Anyway, the rocks come down immediately after, and that was at the point where I started to be a little more on edge or feeling a little bit of angst, like, what the hell just happened? Like, they were really big rocks and really big bangs. These weren't things that just let go. And in order to make sure, my buddy was just, you know, he wanted to go. And his reaction to wanting to leave right now sort of fueled my interest a little bit further to what was going on. So I was just like, look, okay, we can go, but I'm not going anywhere until I can get on top of that cliff and see if I can see any sign of where these rocks would have come loose. And I scrambled up. It took 15, 20 minutes to get up there at a pretty good pace, and I got right to the spot. I looked over the edge of the cliff, and I could see the exact 2 rocks that just came down, and it was just pristine moss. Solid, green, healthy moss, no disturbance, no earth showing where a rock was sitting. There was no sign of anything, and that set me, you know, that fueled the curiosity a little bit more. And I wasn't freaked out or scared or anything like that. I was just really curious as to what was going on, and I was legitimately I was going towards it. There was no doubt in my mind, and I went back to the path. The path was probably 15 feet from the edge of the cliff, so I traversed back to the little trail that I scrambled up, and the very peak where the waterfall would crest was still about 10 feet to 15 feet higher than the position where the rocks fell from. So I was like, okay, my interest is peaked here. I have to get to the top here so I can get a better view of what's going on. And I didn't even reach the top of the crest, and I walked into the stench that people talk about. And, you know, before I was listening to other people's reports and stories and stuff, like right from that day, right from that minute, I always described it as a mix between a wet dog and a filthy, wet barn that has filth all through it and no one bothers to clean it up, and it's musty and mildewy, and it even had a slight scent of almost like it reacted in your nasal passage like it would if you were sniffing ammonia. It had like a little bit of a tingle to it. And the odd thing was that as soon as I noticed that, I mean, the intensity of it